Disney's A Sword in the Stone is a film that either you like or you don't like it. There's no in between. It's kind of a weird film, especially for people expecting an actual King Arthur adaptation. Well, it's just Merlin teaching Arthur stuff. Yeah, that's the most in the movie. I mentioned before, apparently there was supposed to be a sequel to this film. It's going to be the first Disney franchise, but I can't really find a lot of information on it, but it feels like that would be the case based on the way the film is set up. Like, the film kind of just ends, like, I don't know if I can do this. Well, maybe you can, and then I was like, oh, there's going to be a sequel? No, it's not even a direct-to-video sequel. This makes me question the Disney Toon Studios, what they're thinking, because they make direct-to-video sequels about every movie, except for ones that actually could work as a direct-to-video sequel. Oh, this one actually has a book sequel that we actually can base off? We'll still make a sequel to it. Same with Alice in Wonderland. I don't understand that. I know they're not the greatest movies in the world, but if you're going to make a sequel, at least make it stuff that actually has stuff to be made out of. So anyway, why is Sword and Stone a little controversial? Why is it a film that you either love or you're either going to hate? Well, let's find that out. The film definitely looks a little cheaper. 101 Dalmatians worked with the style, but here there's not a whole lot going on here. In fact, it's the first film to really reuse animation up the ass. While Sword and Stone doesn't have as many recycled scenes as future Disney films, which we'll see a lot later, during the Bronze Age, it's just all recycled animation. Not all, but there's a lot of scenes. Robin Hood's the most guilty of this process, but essentially they would take already animated things, like for example, Sword and Stone took from this Disney short, The Truth About Mother Goose, and reanimated for one of the scenes. Not really reanimated, just resketched it. Yeah, there's something that they did. It's kind of a weird thing, because based off what I've heard, it would be just as expensive or time-consuming to do it this way. But maybe it wasn't, because they used it a lot, even for really old films. Like during Robin Hood, they somehow went to the archives and got Snow White ones just to trace over it, which is something that's kind of confusing. I guess animating new stuff can be hard sometimes. But yeah, there's a whole stuff that talks about it. I know more about which ones are recycled. The reasoning is just still a mystery from what I understand. It's kind of weird. I guess they were cheap and lazy, but yeah, recycled animation. So while the film doesn't necessarily look bad, it doesn't seem to have as much interesting things going on in it, for at least animation. It's still a fun movie, but it's a lot more limited to what it can do compared to other movies. Another big problem is the character of Arthur. He's not a bad character, but his voice is incredibly distracting. You see, he is voiced by 3 different actors in one movie. I am not joking, and it changes constantly throughout the movie. Even through a scene, he'll change, which is really weird.
My name's Arthur, but everyone calls me Wart.
I'll get there, okay? But I can't read.
So what happened there is that the first voice actor, he got old, he went through puberty, which you can obviously hear. His voice will randomly crack. He'll sound young, and then it'll sound like he's going through puberty. Then he'll sound young again, and then he'll sound like he's going back through puberty. So then the director hired his son to do it. But then, I guess he didn't like that son, so then he got his other son to do it. Why they not re-record everything? I don't know. I think it would have just been easier just to re-record everything, because it just sounds and is so jarring every time you watch the movie. It's actually one of those things that gets more and more jarring the more you watch it, because you notice it more and more. So what was the idea of doing it this way? I have no idea. They really should have just kept the third and last voice actor to redo all the lines, especially since they had rehired that voice actor to do Mowgli in Jungle Book. But whatever, what do I know? There's also a lot of reused dialogue for this character in general, too. For example, here's him screaming.
What? Oh! Whoa, what? Oh! Whoa, what? Oh! Whoa, what? Oh!
So, according to this film, we got one kid who's going for puberty and sounds like shit. You have another kid who can't act. We have one kid that's good, but we're not going to re-record any of it because we're too lazy to do that. Despite the fact we're going to recast him for playing Mowgli and Christopher Robin. I do not understand what Disney was going on at this time. Oh wait, he was dying and focusing on his weird Epcot project. During this time, Walt Disney had finished his park project, but he wanted to go to his next big thing. Epcot, the city of the future. It never got off the ground. There's an Epcot park, but it's not the same. His city had a lot of flaws, though, and it never came to be because of that. So instead of actually focusing on main Disney projects, when he was dying from lung cancer because he couldn't stop smoking, smoking kills kids, he was focusing on this project that never even came to be. And while all these voices may be a problem, and, all this other stuff I mentioned, at least he wasn't voiced by Justin Timberlake.
Then the only person standing in your way is you.
Me? Get him, lad!
So we got that out of the way. What's this movie about? Well, I already described what it is in the beginning. Arthur's a loser nobody, but hey, he meets a friend named Merlin, an old man who is very interested in him. someone called Chris Hansen now. I kid. Merlin knows the future because he time travels. It's kind of weird. It's kind of meta. It's like the genie, but before the genie, and just not very funny. Just kind of like, okay. Like at one point he has modern day clothes on, like, ooh, wow. You see, Arthur's a dumb shit, so Merlin has to teach him a bunch of stuff. So, like, here's how he's going to teach him, by turning him into different animals, which I guess is neat. But, you're either going to like this premise or you're not going to like it. I think it's kind of unique, and it works well, but it does come off as kind of like, this is what you're going to do with this premise, but whatever. Like, one of his goals to do is to not die as a fish. Like, what a great lesson. He's like, you gotta learn how to not get killed by this barracuda, Arthur. He's like, Merlin would have let the future king die here. I don't know, it cracks me up. And then he gets turned into a squirrel, and this part's kind of infamous because there's a other squirrel who wants to fuck the shit out of him. Like, both. Actually, there's two squirrels who want to fuck the shit out of both of them. And this part became kind of famous online. All because the squirrel's crying. Oh, she's sad. So for a short time on the internet, like, what if this girl became a human and then wanted to fuck him again and stuff like that? There's a ton of this fan art out there. Honestly, I ship it. Also, Arthur has a really shitty family, like an adopted dad and, I guess, a stepbrother or something like that, whatever. They're shitty, but they're not really funny or interesting in any way. They just suck. They're lame. They suck my ass. In the third act, he's a bird now, but during the bird part, he, gets caught by this ugly-ass woman called Madame Mim, who is randomly like, yeah, I hate Merlin. She just randomly comes in the movie, but she's pretty iconic. Like, at one point, she grows giant tits, and there's, of course, a lot of fan art of just this character that lasts, like, less than a minute. As pointless as this character is, it does bring for one of the best parts in the movie, where there's this magic wizard fight where they have to transform into animals in order to beat each other. And, of course, Merlin wins by outsmarting her by becoming a disease, but, you know, it's pretty funny. I like this scene. This is great. In the last 5 minutes, we're actually at the tournament. You know, this whole tournament that we're building up, but not really. The Sword and the Stone is here, in the whole reason the movie. It was mentioned briefly at the beginning, but now it's here again. He pulls it out, and yeah, he's the king. And then it kind of ends there. I don't want to be king, but Merlin's like, you should, you'll be a legend, and yeah, that's it. The Sword and the Stone is a very odd movie. It's a movie that I feel like works more if you're a kid, but I still enjoy it as an adult. I actually never saw this as a kid, believe it or not. It has a lot of fun moments, even things that are kind of just fun to make fun of, like the fact that Arthur's voice changes constantly. It's entertaining, and it's surprisingly not boring, despite the fact it seems like it could fall into that category pretty easily, but luckily it doesn't. There are probably better adaptations of the Arthurian legend, but this is one that's pretty fine if you want something that's more slow, or you want to transform into a fish or something like that. Or you want to fuck a squirrel. Some people want to fuck squirrels, so. Surprisingly, Disney doesn't seem to care for this film, even though it seems like it was made to have more sequels. There's no directed VHS sequel, and even the quote-unquote planned live-action remake has never even materialized. It's actually a film that probably could use a remake. Like, it seems like the only one they were working on was canceled, and there's supposed to be like another one called Merlin, but who knows if that's even going to be based off this or not. We'll see if that ever comes out. Maybe I'll review it. Probably not. When it comes to rides, well, there's King Arthur's Carousel, which is the main one, which is the carousel that was in Disneyland its opening date, meaning that this ride predates the movie by quite a few amount of years, and pretty much has nothing to do with the movie, because as you can probably see in the background, the image is there from Sleeping Beauty. So yeah, even the ride from this movie has nothing to do with the movie. And the very last attraction I could find is a Sword in the Stone, which is featured in pretty much every Disney park, where guests can pull the sword out of the stone if they're worthy. Of course, this is triggered by a certain cast member in the background, but hey, it's cool if you can do it. Most likely, you only pull it out if you're a kid. If you're a big, strong man, you probably won't. Alright, it's time for the rankings, and for the rankings here, we have it in the C tier, which is a 7, which isn't bad. It's alright, especially for how some people might have presumed I would rate it based on my descriptions. It's easier to be negative than be positive sometimes, just to let you know there in the review world. Though, it's good to give credit where it's due. I do enjoy the film, I think it's fun, though it could have done a bit more. Even though her presence in the movie is not really that noteworthy, in all grand scheme of things, and kind of pointless story narrative-wise, Madame Mim is a fun character, and is definitely a highlight of the film, so that's why she's in B tier. Upper B tier at that. While Sword and Stone has songs, none of them are particularly good, like, at all. They're actually kind of bad. Most of them are sung by Merlin, so you want to hear an old man sing? No, not really, but unfortunately, we have to. So, at the bottom here, we have Madame Mim. I do not know if Madam has an E in the end, so maybe I need to rechange that. But, yeah, the song sucks. It's not even a song, just her speaking. And then in E, we got Most Befuddling Thing and Hiccutus Ficcutus. Why? Well, Merlin can't sing. And I believe the next one is What Makes the World Go Round, which is in D tier. I don't know what to say about these songs here, to be honest. They're kind of there. They're kind of like background noise or anything. And in C tier, the last one, which is The Sword and the Stone, which I do like it, but it's nothing too spectacular. It's kind of a nice Celtic vibe to it. And other than that, that's all I gotta say about the music and the entirety of Sword and the Stone. Next time we head into the jungle with The Jungle Book. So I'll see you then. Hey, did you know I have a book? In fact, I have multiple books. They're available on Amazon. There should be a link in the description. However, I do have the digital versions on my Patreon, so if you want to support me and read what I have written, they're mostly kids' books, but you might enjoy it. After all, we all like SpongeBob, or whatever your video you're watching. I might reuse this clip. Then you can make sure to check it out. And thank you.